Next 30 minutes, we will take you through all the top stories from across the globe. President Donald Trump enthusiastically embraced the National Rifle Association, vowing not to tighten U.S. firearms laws despite suggesting after a Florida school shooting that he would take on the powerful gun rights group. At the NRA's annual convention in Dallas, Trump called again for arming teachers and increasing school security to head off future mass shootings like the one in Parkland, Florida in February that killed 17 people. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the date and location for the meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un has been decided. Meanwhile, in a statement, the White House has announced that Trump will be hosting South Korea's Moon Jae-in on the 22nd of May. In further signs of improving relations, both the Koreas, the North and the South, have agreed to be on the same time zone. North Korea will move its clock 30 minutes forward to unify with the South Korea's time zone starting today. This comes as a conciliatory gesture after last week's inter-Korean summit. New U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo defended what he calls muscular diplomacy practiced by President Donald Trump as a way to solve thorny global issues peacefully without ever firing a shot. Speaking before of a group of American diplomats at the State Department, Pompeo outlined his vision for U.S. foreign policy at a time of many challenges. The U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Roberta Jacobson, has stepped down after announcing her resignation in March, setting up a delicate transition period at a time of sharp tension between the two neighbors. President Donald Trump has not yet named a replacement for the ambassador. Jacobson's deputy, William Duncan, will head the embassy in the interim. The governor of the U.S. state of Iowa signed into law Friday a ban on abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, which occurs as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. The bill was approved by the state's Republican-controlled legislature just 2 days earlier and is expected to trigger a legal battle. Hours after President Donald Trump said his lawyer Rudy Giuliani did not have his facts straight, the former New York mayor issued a statement saying $130,000 in hush money paid to an adult film star before the 2016 election was not an election law violation. On Thursday, he also had connected the payment to Stormy Daniels by the president's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, to keep quiet about a 2006 sexual encounter she had with Trump to the election, remarks that raised the possibility that the transaction violated federal election law. A magnitude of 6.9 earthquake shook Hawaii's Big Island, prompting fresh eruptions of a volcano that has been spewing lava near residential areas, forcing hundreds of people to flee. The U.S. Geological Survey said that the quake was centered on the south flank of the Kilauea volcano, which first erupted on Thursday after a series of tremors on the island. Israeli troops fired live rounds and tear gas at Palestinians thronging the Gaza-Israel border as part of a long-running protest, injuring about 350 people. Medics said that around 50 people were shot and wounded with live fire. 3 of them were critically injured and 300 more treated for gas inhalation and other injuries along the Gaza side of the 25-mile border fence, where Palestinians set up tent encampments on March 30th for what they call the Great March of Return. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has offered an apology after he was accused of anti-Semitism for suggesting that historic persecution of European Jews had been caused by their conduct, not by their religion. In a statement issued by his office in Ramallah, Abbas condemned anti-Semitism and called the Holocaust the most heinous crime in history. The Trump administration says that it is ending special immigration protections for about 57,000 Hondurans, adding them to hundreds of thousands of immigrants from other countries battered by violence and natural disasters who are losing permission to be in the United States. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security's widely anticipated decision not to renew temporary protected status for them means an estimated 428,000 people from several countries face rolling deadlines beginning late this year to leave or obtain legal residency in other ways. In telephonic conversation with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that China and Japan should properly manage their contradictions and differences to bring bilateral relations back on track and strive for new developments. Xi said that the two countries should go over the spirits of the Peace and Friendship Treaty, abide by the principles of the four China-Japan political documents, implement the four-point consensus, keep promises and comply with the rules. Tesla CEO Elon Musk acknowledged that it was foolish of him to snub analysts on a conference call earlier in this week, but further needled Wall Street with a series of accusatory tweets. In a post-earnings call, Musk refused to answer questions from analysts on the electric vehicle maker's capital requirements, saying that boring bonehead questions are not cool, before turning questions over to a little-known investor who runs the hyperchain. Donald Trump is willing to testify in the election meddling probe if he is treated fairly. That is what the US president told the media today when he was questioned on the ongoing probe. Claiming that he has done no wrong, President Trump termed the investigation a pure witch hunt and partial. He reiterated that there was no collusion between his campaign team and Russia. Israel has dropped out of a race for a Security Council seat in 2019 and 2020 following a campaign by Arab states at the United Nations to block the bid. The decision leaves the path clear for Germany and Belgium to take the two seats available for countries of the Western Europe and other group when the General Assembly votes next month. Argentina's central bank hiked its benchmark interest rate to 40% to support the peso, the third such hike in just over a week and 1 day after the currency plunged in value. Following the decision, the currency which has lost more than 10% of its value in the past month opened 6% higher against the dollar. President Emmanuel Macron, accused of straining France's secular foundations by saying he wanted to mend ties with the Catholic Church in his country, will travel to the Vatican in June to meet Pope Francis. Vatican spokesman Greg Burke said both sides were organizing a visit for late June, but no further details were available. France KLM boss Jean-Marc announced his resignation after staff at the carrier's French operations rejected a pay deal aimed at ending weeks of strikes. Unions said the increase was too little after years of restructuring, during which pay was frozen, and demanded a 5.1% raise this year instead. Staff and management at the carrier have been locked in a dispute over pay since February. Turkey's main opposition Republic People's Party on Friday nominated one of its most prominent and combative lawmakers to challenge President Tayyip Erdogan in the June 24th snap presidential election. The secularist, which has never won an election against Erdogan in his decade and a half in power, chose 54-year-old ex-high school physics teacher as its candidate. Turkey's main pro-Kurdish party said its charismatic former leader would be its candidate for president in polls next month, even though he's currently jailed and on trial in several legal cases. The People's Democratic Party had agreed that as its candidate, he and his campaign would be launched in simultaneous rallies in Istanbul and the majority Kurdish city on Friday afternoon. Some 130 election observers will be deployed by the European Union Election Observation Mission to monitor the first Lebanese elections to be held in 9 years. The mission will present its preliminary report on the voting process, which will be followed by a final and comprehensive report about 2 months later, which will include the mission's observations and recommendations. Tunisians are set to vote in the first free municipal elections, which comes as another step in the North African country's difficult democratic transition that has become marred by disappointment over lack of jobs and economic opportunities. Tunisia has been hailed as the only democratic success of the Arab Spring because it toppled a long-serving autocrat without triggering major violence or civil war or a reversion to the authoritarian rule. Drumming up international support for his call to fix or nix the Iran nuclear deal, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reached out to his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi to update him on the recent developments. A statement from Netanyahu's media advisor yesterday said that the Israeli Prime Minister spoke to 3 key international leaders, including Modi, Australian Prime Minister, and British Prime Minister. Two mountaineers were rescued after an avalanche in the Pyrenees in Spain. A video shared on social media by the Spanish Civil Guard showed the moment a helicopter partially descended to get the rescue team to the scene in the southeast face of Punta Cioleza. The mountaineers were dragged about 50 meters by the avalanche. The Nobel Prize in Literature will not be awarded this year. The Swedish Academy made the announcement and said that 2018 prize will be awarded in 2019 instead. The Academy clarified it is in no shape to pick a winner after a string of sexual abuse allegations and financial crime scandals. It will be for the first time since 1943 that the prestigious award will not be given away. A divided Connecticut Supreme Court threw out the 2002 murder conviction of Michael Skakel, who was a member of the Kennedy family, and ordered a new trial. The decision upheld a lower court judge's 2013 ruling that Skakel's lawyer did not provide an adequate defense, necessitating a new trial. A man in the U.S. state of Kansas who shot dead an Indian immigrant was sentenced on Friday to life in prison. Adam Puranton had previously pleaded guilty to the racial slur-filled drunken attack in February last year at a suburban bar and restaurant in the Midwestern state. Srinivas Kuchibola was killed in the assault in the Kansas City suburb of Olathe. His friend Alok Madasani, also Indian, was injured along with a bystander who tried to intervene. A fresh warning about thunderstorm and squall hitting West Bengal, Odisha, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh has been issued. Indian Home Ministry noted that 124 people were killed while more than 300 injured in 5 states due to thunderstorm and lightning in the last 2 days. The maximum casualties were reported in Uttar Pradesh, where 73 people were killed while 91 others were injured. A fully refurbished vintage military aircraft has been inducted into the Indian Air Force. The Dakota DC-3 VP-905 was formally inducted into the IAF at a ceremony at New Delhi's Hindon Air Force Station, where a golden key was received by the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal B.S. Dhanua, from Air Commander M.K. Chandrasekhar, whose son and Member of Parliament had brought and restored the aircraft. Meghan Markle's father, Thomas, will walk her down the aisle when she marries Britain's Prince Harry, despite claims from a half-brother that she had snubbed her family. Thomas Markle and the bride-to-be's mother, Doria Ruckland, who divorced 3 decades ago, will arrive in Britain in the week before May 19, wedding to spend time with Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip. Reacting to Indian President Ramnath Kovind handing over only 11 national awards, Oscar-winning sound designer Russell Pukoti tweeted, and I quote, "If the government of India cannot earmark 3 hours of its time, they shouldn't bother giving us national award." He also added that more than 50% of our sweat you take as entertainment tax, least you could do is respect the values we hold dear. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences have expelled comedian Bill Cosby and filmmaker Roman Polanski for violating the organization's standards of conduct. While Cosby was convicted of sexual assault, Polanski had admitted to raping a minor girl in 1977. The Academy recently implemented a revised standard of conduct after many Hollywood personalities were accused of sexual harassment. Beatles legend Sir Paul McCartney was presented with the Order of the Champions of Honor at a ceremony at Buckingham Palace on 4th of May 2018. The award presented by the Queen honoured his lasting contribution to music around the world. Outside the palace, McCartney posed for photographs alongside wife Nancy Chevelle.